Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Bishop Italo Dell'Oro, the auxiliary bishop of this archdiocese. And in that capacity, I help Cardinal DiNardo in the administration of the archdiocese in several matters. And also pastorally, celebrating the other half of confirmations that he doesn't. And we have Father Clark and maybe Bishop Lopes that occasionally help out, but mostly we do that. And but a very brief introduction. I used to come to this place, to this church, to celebrate the Mass in Spanish until I became a bishop, so 3.5 years ago. For the last 2 or 3 years before that, it would be maybe 3 out of 4 Sundays a month I would be here. And those who used to come to the 5 o'clock Mass sometimes knew who to blame because of the length of the homilies. It's me. Tell me in front of me if you were among there. Oh, we never found the space to park our car. But here I am, and I don't promise how long it will be, the homily, but I want to highlight 3 points. Of course, we heard a beautiful statement that is simply proclaimed by Jesus, the truth about himself. Throughout the month of August, you probably recall, we heard from the Gospel of John the beautiful, great speech, conversation, I should say, that Jesus had with the scribes who were questioning him about the bread. Now, after he fed the 5,000 people, and they kept following him, say, don't look for the bread that fills your belly, but the ones that gives you life. And then I'm the bread of life. And so a whole lot conversation about this bread of life that came down from heaven, that it is the true food. And it's a bread of life that feeds, will allow you to move forward. And the bread that I will give you is my flesh for the world. You remember that. You know, 4 Sundays, we heard the unfolding of this beautiful portion of St. John's Gospel on the Eucharist, but before that on the Incarnation. It's the bread come down from heaven. Now, Jesus, in the Gospel that I just proclaimed, tells the people that they are listening to him that you will see the Son of Man coming in power and glory. The Son of Man was a figure that the prophet Daniel put in before the passage that we heard this morning. In other passage, when he contemplated this one looking like a man, like a son of man, and he will come judging the world. So it's a judgment figure. But by saying so, Jesus is a figure that comes down from heaven. So in a way, he picks up an echo, St. John's word in his gospel about the bread come down from heaven by saying, I'm also not only the bread that came down from heaven, but I'm the Son of Man who will come to judge. And so we are led immediately to understand that Jesus is very serious about his own identity. He never doubted about who he was. He knew that he was it was the one came down from heaven. And interesting, never telling people that I am the Son of God, but always addressing God with the name of. How did he talk to God? Jesus. What would he say when he was praying to God? Father. They would say Father, obviously being the Son, okay? So by inference, we knew that he's the Son. And then we know that he's the Son of God. But by saying the Son of Man, he, of course, accentuates his human nature because he is a true God and true man, and born of the Virgin by the work of the Holy Spirit, right? As what we proclaim in the Creed. But also, he connected this statement to the statement of the prophet Daniel. He's the one who comes to judge, who will come to judge the world. And so we learn this, and it's very appropriate, sisters and brothers, that we recognize this statement in all of its weight and all of its relevance, all of its importance, even though it's kind of given there, Son of Man will come, I will come to judge, because it is fundamental to our faith that we do not believe in anything but one God, right? How many gods do we believe in? Say it. Yeah, one. But his Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And Jesus, by saying the Son of Man will come, he identifies himself with one of the 3 persons of the Most Holy Trinity. And it is ultimately the first commandment. I am the Lord your God, and there is no other God outside me. And we heard it a few Sundays ago, the beautiful Shema Israel, I, the Lord your God, I'm the only one. I'm the only God, all right? So it's very important that we never forget the relevance of our faith, because it is at the foundation, at the basis of everything that we do, or it should be, of everything that we do and everything that we think and how we lead and orient our life. If we fail to remind ourselves that we believe in one God and only one, and there are no other gods, then our life acquires a sense of direction. You know, when Monsignor remodeled this church and built this swaying, this path, he explained to me years ago, say, you know, this is the journey of man. Okay? That kind of goes the way, then goes that way, but finally arrives here where God is present. And by the way, the mitre that I'm wearing, it has this wave on the three colors, right? Red, green, and gold. And you know, I'm Italian. The Italian flag is red, green, and white. But my last name is Dell'Oro, of the gold. And so it looks like that it's made for me specifically. No. It's one of the 7,000+ mitres that were given to the bishops who were in Lisbon last year for the World Youth Day. And I also have a matching chasuble, by the way, but it's white, so today is green. But that is represent, you know, the journey of human beings. We kind of way where we oscillate left and right and doubts and questions, but never ever should we forget the identity of Jesus and what he came to do to reveal the fullness of the truth about God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So with this, when you will see the Son of Man coming in judgment, we are told, first of all, that we believe on God, and we shouldn't ever forget that, truly ever. And then Jesus says, I come, we heard in the second reading that the priests of old, of the Old Testament, they would offer sacrifices every time, but they didn't do much of anything. However, when this one, Jesus, came, he offered himself as a sacrifice, and that one sacrifice has once and for all and forever, brought forgiveness into the world to those who accept it, because it can be refused, forgiveness. No? And the first way to accept forgiveness is to be baptized, because through baptism, you know that all what we call the original sin, and if we are adults, we have done things that were not right, that for the unbaptized are not properly seen morally, but then they are forgiven. Everything. When you receive a baptism, whether you are a baby, okay, or you are a 50 years old person, the sins of the past are everything forgiven. There's no need to go to confession before you go to baptism. Okay, but after baptism, we know that Jesus' forgiveness, God forgives, continues through the sacrament of reconciliation. And I know that is very popular here, St. Vincent de Paul, the sacrament. It's wonderful. Because the sacrament of reconciliation brings forgiveness to the sin. But we heard also in the second reading that the sin that had been forgiven need no more sacrifices, meaning the sins that have been forgiven once, they do not need to be confessed a second time, the third, the fourth, and the fifth time, okay? Really? Because to confess the sin that happened 20 years ago, and then I know I already confessed it 20 years ago, but since the memory of it is heavy on my soul, I keep confessing. It means that I don't believe in the power of God's forgiving sacrifice. It's a lack of faith. As much faith we want to put into that confession, it's a lack of faith to keep bringing up sins of the past that have not been confessed and therefore have not been forgiven. Because that sacrifice forgives and wipes away. This is what we heard in the letter to the Hebrews this afternoon. So sisters and brothers, pay attention. When we go to confession, you may say, the memory of it haunts me. And okay, but not the sin. It's gone as a sin. God has forgiven. There are other responsibilities, there may be, but then need to be taken care of. But in terms of being forgiven, and that's what relevant to become as Jesus we heard now become and will send the elect to this life of resurrection, which we heard also in the first reading. The just, the wise will be resurrected, raised from the dead. So the second point, the first is there's only one God, and Jesus is the face of God, the one who revealed it to us in his fullness, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But then he comes as the judge of the world. At the end of each person's lives, we are called to give a judgment. Of course, he's talking also at the final judgment. And we know that will come. But we should not worry about it. No, not even the Son knows about when it comes, only the Father. So stop worrying about it. When is the world being destroyed? No? And we tend to have these apocalyptic thoughts even in our time. The world is come to an end. Maybe it is. I do not know. Just live your life. It is your life is coming to an end. That's what matters. Your personal life may be coming. I do not know. I don't mean knock on wood, okay? Knock on wood. That's not wood, sir. Here, that's wood. But knock on it. Now knock on wood if you want to. Maybe tomorrow one of us will not wake up. Oh, that's pretty threatening, doesn't sound it? Huh? But that's the truth. We do not know when the Lord will call me or anyone. Eventually, he will call us all. Eventually, one by one. One by one. He has tons of people to call to himself. And we tend to be afraid of it. But the point is, he will call the elect. The elect are the ones who have accepted the forgiveness of Jesus through baptism. Those who are not baptized are not elect. Those who are not baptized cannot call in truth. I can say the word, but cannot call in truth Father to God. They may heard that he's Father, but the power of calling in truth and saying the truth about it means that when I say God, Father, what we say in a few minutes, our Father, it means the truth. He's our Father and we are his children. Okay? The truth is for those who have accepted to be baptized. That baptism generates us into the adoption of being God's children. All right? So, and these are the elect. And we keep our election alive, okay, active, by making sure that we do go to confession and confess the sins that we commit on a daily basis, all right? We are all sinners, accepting that truth. Some more, some less serious. So keeping a habit to go but not confessing the one that have been already forgiven. Don't do that. Not only does the priest say, oh, please stop, I already heard this, okay? But the point, it's a statement of lack of faith. It means that we don't believe that when we were forgiven yesterday, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, when the first time I confessed it, that God actually forgave us. We lack that faith, which is, it's kind of serious, I'll be honest. We don't believe that Jesus really died and rose from the dead for me, for all of us, but for me. And therefore, he granted me that forgiveness. Okay? So, but let's keep that state of being elect. Having been elected to go and contemplate the face of God. And as St. Augustine in the office of reading reminded those who read it this morning, he says, well, we are kind of afraid of it. Why are we afraid? And so it's, in other words, if I say that, I said it once more and I'll stop, but that perhaps one of us tomorrow will not wake up, okay, it really sounds threatening, doesn't it? Ominous. It sounds ominous. Bishop, why are you saying all of this? But because it's the truth. I do not know when any of us will die. If that scares us, in a way should cause some trembling. But if that scares us, that means that maybe we have taken a swing to whichever direction, right or left. There's nothing political here, no. Whatever swing, and we are now not really in the direction to where we are supposed to go. Oh, my God is merciful. Of course he is merciful. He sent his son to die for us on the cross. That's mercy. That's what the mercy is. God sent his only son in the world so that he might become like one of us. He who is God. He doesn't need us. Doesn't need you. Doesn't need me. Doesn't need us. Because he's perfect in who he is. And yet, out of compassion and mercy, for the lost humankind, sent his son so that he might become like one of us, die the terrible death on the cross, and then rise from the dead, and therefore giving us back life. So that's mercy. That's mercy. So since God is merciful and He sent His Son, I can take it easy, right? I can make exceptions to what I'm actually called to do. I know it from my conscience. And so I swing a little bit more angled trajectory. Now, if you look, I'm looking at this one on the floor here. More angle here and more angle there. And I end up doing some foolish things. Take your chances. Take your chances. Reminded us, St. Augustine, you want to receive mercy? Because, God, I did everything well, but, lately I kind of swinging that side too long, and I did some foolish things. We can presume that God is mercy. We know that God is merciful. We can presume that He may be merciful at the very moment that I die, that we die, but we do not know. We do not know. So, to make sure that we will be treated with mercy, St. Augustine said, well then, act as a merciful person. Be merciful yourself to anybody. Then you will be sure, you will know it in your heart, that God will be merciful to you. Okay? That will be merciful to you. Jesus is the judge. Not only is He the bread of life, the food that nourishes us on this earthly journey, but He's the judge that will come and will call His elect. And the elect are the ones who have accepted Him in baptism, right? And then strive to live according to the standards of Christian life. And faced with the fear of this last step in our life, to make sure that the last step is a journey into the fullness of who God is, let us act like gods right now by being merciful, because God indeed is merciful.